don't read the scriptures and try to apply it to what you know now. Even though there's certain prophecies in there that apply to now, but you got to remember, whenever you're reading certain scriptures, you got to remember what was going on at that time. And this Hellenistic period during the time of Yahushua was still fresh in the minds of the disciples. It was still fresh in the mind of the Pharisees and Sadducees and all them. So they knew the history. The Apostle Paul knew about that history. Everybody knew about the history of how the Greeks came and destroyed the temple and scattered Israel. And some of them became heathens, by worshiping behind them. You have to understand that history. And then when you read certain scriptures, they make more sense.
Hey, Shalom. First off, I want to start off by saying all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. That's all praises to the world calls God and Jesus Christ. The true names in the Hebrew is Yahweh and Yahushua. I also want to give double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and mercy to the hopeful elect, which is going to come out of the 12 tribes of Israel, which consists primarily of you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man. And the confusion and face that are out there, man, whose lines go back according to their fathers, whose lines go back to the 12 tribes of Israel, man. This is just a little excerpt from Apostle Aramlah's video that he made in the last 12 hours. Today is 5/24/2018. I'm gonna go into some of this because, brothers, sometimes you need a little brush up on the history, and sometimes you need some brothers to walk you through some of the history. So I'm gonna go in the scriptures. I'm gonna bring some of this to life. I'm gonna play a little bit more of Apostle Ramlah's video, and Lord willing, this is edifying. I like that. Lord willing, this is edifying, and brothers get what they need out of this, man. So I'm gonna play a little bit more, because he's going to cover some things, and I'm going to cover some of the things that he was going over as well. I'll go back to that mark. 37.
The temple and scattered Israel, and some of them became heathens, by worshiping behind them. You have to understand that history, and then when you read certain scriptures, they make more sense. This is the book of St. John 7:32. It says, the Pharisees heard that the people murmured such things concerning him, and the Pharisees and the chief priests sent officers to take him. Then said Yahushua unto them, yet a little while am I with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. You shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither you cannot come. It says, then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Now, when you go to this word Gentiles, it doesn't use the word ethnos, it uses the word Hellen, which is Greeks. When you go to different, a Greek either by nationality, whether native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies, in a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews. That's a lie. That made and this is why you can't trust the blue letter Bible all the time. You have to know what you're involved in before you can get into these things. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. If you just to read this for face value, you would think it's just talking about a regular Greek person. Well, in the sense of the first part of it, right here, where it says, that's why you have that. It says, whither will he go that we shall not find him? Will he go into the dispersed among the Gentiles or the Greeks? Those are the actual Greeks. The dispersed are the Israelites that were dispersed among these Greeks. And teach the Greeks. Then this is talking about the Israelites that were being called Greeks or heathens or Gentiles by the Jews, which are making this statement. Let's go.
You know what? And I'm gonna go in some of the stuff that I found. And Lord willing, this is edifying, man. Lord willing, this is edifying. So I found some good articles, man. I found a good little excerpt. Let me make sure. I'll go to this one first. I'm gonna put these links in the description, man, because it's some good information. I tell you what. Now this article by JSTOR.org says Hellenization of the Jews between 334 and 334 BC and 70 AD. When was this work? American Journal, Volume 13. Trying to get the exact year that this was published. Let me just go into it, man. Now, let me find where I was at. It says, period of Hellenization. Go back one article back. Just consider that. All right, here it is. It's down here somewhere. It's possible to Jews. All right. Hold on, my pen. You know, there's going to be a little circle that pops on the screen. Lord willing, y'all can see it. You can get some edification. Now, it says, it is impossible indeed that a Jew of the 4th century became Christian before Christ may have become a Greek, not only in language but also in spirit. It is not credible, however, that there was a Jew at the time who in philosophy was qualified to communicate to Aristotle and to other Greek philosophers somewhat more than he received from them. So Jews were becoming Greek in spirit, meaning they were following after those things. So that's why the scriptures tell you, what is that, Jeremiah 10:1? I'll just get it so I don't have to quote it. Jeremiah 10:1. It says, hear ye the word of Yahweh speak unto the house, word which Yahweh speaketh unto the house of Israel. Thus said Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, neither be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Now, he said, learn not the way of the heathen. Now, Israel was going off because they were learning the ways of the heathen, man. They picked up their philosophies, their tongues, and all these attributes. Now, if you go in the book of Maccabees, and this is just backing up what we're reading right here. If you go in the book of Maccabees, first book of Maccabees, first chapter, I'll go to the 11th verse. It says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well, and certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king and gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen, whereupon they built places of exercise. Now, go back to this article that I had. I believe it covers this in this as well. Not only in qualification, philosophers, Greek and the writings of the Jews, and the Jews had the influence of Greek and had schools in Egypt, thousands of years, civilization, Babylon, passed before the dominion nation, acquaintance began at once, and the Jews returned to Babylon in days and speedily grew and around indeed. Age perceived in Gentiles, religious disbelief alone past it. I guess one more for it, man. This is a lot of information in here, man. Began to break down the barrier of the Greeks and spiritual things in the centuries. Therefore, Alexander decayed became a process and assimilation of the Jews. Primary importance first was the invasion of Palestine. Oh, man. In this article, You know, brothers are going to have to skim through this by themselves because I can't highlight anything in here, so it's hard to get the information that I want straight up. In this article, though, it covers the period where they started to build places of exercise, which it's secular history that they're saying these things. And if you read in this as well, it says the same thing. It says, First Maccabees 1:13, it says, then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king who gave them license to do after ordinance of a heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the custom of the heathen. And they made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief, man. And so this is part of that Hellenization, taking on those customs and those philosophies and those ways of the heathen that is said that Apostle Aramlot was covering in his video, where he said it says, and then shall there appear a sign from heaven and try to earth and Matthew. Where Apostle Aramlot was going over the scripture where it says, whether will he go? Will he go to the dispersion among the Gentiles? Those Hellenized Jews were those ones that he was talking about, because they became Hellen by following those practices that they were doing. Now, if you go to and go back to one of these articles, because it covers the Feast of Bacchus, which this is part of it as well. If you give me a minute to find this Bacchus, like in support of high priest, gave them dominion. Greek destroyed 100, confessed, exhortation. I believe it's in the 24th or 25th. It says in the 3rd century before Yahushua, when the Palestine was under the rule of Ptolemies, it was believed that the Old Testament, or at least the greater part of it, was translated into Greek. These Jews told in Greek, if there indeed was a case where Salakiakim, I got to proofread this a little bit. There's a lot of information to remember where everything is. Historians. Suppose. God damn, man. It's like in the 24th, 25th or something. Greasy. Oh, here it is. The water Yahweh. Now it says the Jews who frequented it had their circumcision and this is talking, you know what, let me go back, because this covers that gym. It says, when he descended to the next century, the Antiochus Epiphanes, they had numerous evidence where the Greeks element of Palestine, not merely in learning toward the Greek. Yeah, here it is. It says, when we descend to the next century, to the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, 175 to 164 BC, and the reason why that time goes backwards is because it starts before Yahushua come into the scene. So you're going to count back up to that time of when Yahushua is going to be born. When it actually hits that point where Yahushua is born, it goes back to 0. It says we find more numerous evidence of the presence of a Greek element in Palestine, not merely in when it's saying Palestine, Israel was all over there, man. It says not merely of a learning toward Greek customs and an acquaintance with Greek civilization, which would not of themselves necessarily imply the immediate presence of Greeks. Thus, in fact, in the first place, we learn that when Antiochus, at the request of the high priest Jason, and his party granted the erection of a gymnasium in Jerusalem under the shadow of the Greeks. Now I'm gonna get another scripture. This is I'm gonna just pull this up in my sword, man. This is 2 Maccabees chapter 6. Make this a little easier to get to these things. This is just giving a little history on it. Second Maccabees 6, and I'll start at 7. Now it says, I'll start a little up. For the temple was filled with riot and rivaling by the Gentiles who dallied with the harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and beside that brought in things that were not lawful. The altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbidded. And this is that abomination that's working desolate. It's not the abomination that works desolate, but this is building up to it, man, because these are the wicked acts that the heathen forced on our people, and our people, and the wicked of our people consented to these things. Now it says, verse 6, neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. So this is how Hellenization, because if you read these articles as well, Hellenization rapidly sped up as soon as it says it was more rapid when Alexander the Great died, because then you have the Ptolemy Empire come into play, and they were making laws where it was illegal to follow our customs. That's what I read in First Maccabees, where certain of our wicked people had that go ahead to do these wicked things. Now in verse 7, it says, and in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivory. And now that's exactly what it said down here at these last few words of this paragraph at the bottom. It says, thus in the first place, we learned that when Antiochus, at the request of the high priest Jason, in his party, granted the erection of a gymnasium in Jerusalem under the shadow of the temple. Now it says, under the shadow of the Tower of David, the Jews who frequented it had their circumcision that they might appear to be Greeks, which seemed plainly to argue that Greeks also visited the same place. About this time, when the feast of Bacchus was celebrated, the Jews were compelled to deck themselves with ivory and march in a procession in the same source mention is made of the Greek cities round about Jerusalem, that is Judea. So that's what this is covering in 2 Maccabees 6 and 7. It says, in the day when the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraints to eat the sacrifices when the feast of Bacchus was kept, and the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivory. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighboring cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashion and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles, the heathen, should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. So there was a decree that went forth for this Hellenization. And the decree was it was illegal for us to follow these laws. Now, if you read in First Maccabees, the first chapter, in verse 41, it says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his law. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yet many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. And that's what this is all of what Apostle Ramlak was covering in this video, because it says, will he go to disperse and run among the Gentiles? Now, if you watch a little bit more of this,
to Ephesians chapter 2 and 11, it says, wherefore remember that you being in time past Gentiles in the flesh. Why? Because you became that way when you were worshiping the idol.
See, now in time past, you were Gentiles carried away, and this is what it's talking about. Because they were carried away by these laws, they were afraid to follow what the Scripture says, so they gave their strength up to these heathen god. Because it says on the 41st verse of 43rd verse in First Maccabees, it says, yeah, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. See, this is part of that Hellenization. This is why the scriptures tell you that Israel was going to be scattered abroad, because we were Hellenized through these Edomites, man. The so-called white men, which were the Greeks in those days, they Hellenized the Jews by wicked inventions, wicked laws. They made it illegal for us to be what the Lord intended us to be, man. Now, I got one more article I'm going to go into, man. I didn't want this to go on too long. No, I'm jumping all over the place. And I suggest brothers to read this. I'm going to put it in the description. I'll do that after this. I'm gonna put it in the description though, because there's a lot of good information in there, man. You just keep reading that. There's another article I found. It says amazing Bible timeline with world history. Ptolemy's rule Jews under. It says start right there. It says, at first Ptolemy ruled his allocated lands with Seleucus serving him, but Seleucus wanted land of his own. Eventually, Seleucus and Ptolemy went to war with each other over other, leading to the formation of two empires. Now, the scriptures don't go over this in the book of Maccabees. It says Ptolemy finally gained complete control over the Judeans by 320 BC. I'm gonna jump down now. It says once Ptolemy had the power, he didn't bother the Jewish people as long as they paid him tribute. They were at least 5 ruling Ptolemy rulers of Judea. Ptolemy Soter transported Jews. That wasn't transportation, man. That was slavery. Transported Jewish people to Egypt and his Greek homeland. He wanted to teach them how to speak his native tongue. This was not an innocent plea for him to teach Israelites their wicked tongue, man. This was him putting them in subjection. This wasn't a problem with the Jewish people, who were already used to the practice of being forced into other lands, being slaves, man. That's what the scripture says, Israel, a homeborn slave. It says, and some of them welcomed the ability to travel to other regions. Ptolemy put a Jewish priest who was loyal to him in charge of Judah. And now that Jewish priest that was loyal to him, I believe his name is Jason. And we can go to that in the First Maccabees, the 4th chapter, or in Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter. I'm getting this in my sword. Second Maccabees, the 4th chapter, the 7th verse. It says, but after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored under the high priest, promising unto the king by intercession 300 and 80 talents of silver, and another revenue 8 talents. Besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise. Now, this is a place of exercise that they eradicated under the Ptolemy's empire. It says, and for the training up of the youth in the fashion of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochus. Now, verse 10, it says, when the king had granted and had gotten into his hand the ruler, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion. And this was them taking over that spirit of the Greeks, the heathen. This is what the hellenization, that this is why the Lord told Israel he was going to go to the disperse among the Gentile and teach. That's why they were making that reason amongst themselves. Shall he go to the disperse among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? That disperses Israel. The Gentiles he was talking about, as Apostle Ramah said, were the first Gentiles, he said, were the heathen. And the second Gentiles was talking about Israel, that were in that Gentile state of mind, that spirit. Now it says, Ptolemy put a Jewish priest who was loyal to him in charge of Judah, Jewish leaders who governed in the time of Ptolemy had to keep order and make sure the people pay their taxes on time as long as they fulfilled their requirements. Ptolemy let them do as they pleased. Greek culture had become so dominant in the ancient world around 300 BC that almost every person knew some form of the Greek language. Now it says the Greek language in ancient times was universal language in the same way English is spoken in this day. It was spoken today, and that's how we know that this is the the Roman Empire all over again, because this is that beast that was wounded but yet they lived, man. It says because of its influence, many Jewish leaders began to learn how to speak it, and when they transformed their Hebrew text into Greek language, that's not important. It says Ptolemy and Seleucus fought against each other in territory. The Jewish people were caught up in the struggle, and they wanted to ongoing confidence. And because the Jewish people were being caught in the conflict. That's it on that, man. This is just a little bit of history, a little bit of background, so brothers can get something out of it and be able to get some understanding about how we were Hellenized. The Israelites were Hellenized under law, under wicked men that were in Israel. And the scriptures tell you about it, man. This history is in secular. The scriptural history is in secular history, man. Lord willing, this is edifying. Brothers got something out of it. So I'm gonna put some of these articles up. I'm gonna put definitely this first article in the comments in the not the comment section, but on the video, in the description of the video. Brothers, read this. I've gotten up to page 31 or something like that. I need to read the rest of it because it's really edifying, man. Lord willing, it's edifying. I want to say, call halal, Yahweh Shemi Shai. Peace and mercy to the whole elect, and double honor to elders and apostles of the great millstone. Shalom.